Hi. This week we're going to talk about empathy. So, welcome to Interpersonal Communication, and let's talk Turkey with Jayne Turk. Glad you could join us. Before we get started on empathy, let's just do a quick recap. And for those of you that are doing this for fun, play along, please. So, did you do the 24-hour media detox? I must confess I did not, but I hope some of you did, and I hope you let me know how it went. I was reading some stories in the news recently about a group of high school kids who actually did, I think, a 3 or 4 week media device detoxification. And the results were fascinating. They were significantly mentally healthier. They felt better connections with their friends. What didn't change, though, was their focus or short attention spans, leading the researchers to hypothesize that our use of devices has some long term consequences, particularly on developing brains. Certainly something for us to think about. And I know that some of you are behind on chapter notes, so I want to really encourage you to get caught up on those and come see me during office hours. I'll sit with you and help you do them if you need to, or I'll make an appointment and I'm happy to sit with you and make sure that you're getting those done and you're feeling confident. For those of you that are doing this for fun, I want to say I highly recommend the book. In fact, this is really the only textbook that I've ever recommended as fun reading, and that is Looking Out, Looking In by Ron Adler with a bunch of other writers. So, depending on what version you're using, I encourage you to read it. And are you practicing? And then recording those practices in your sim journals. So the practicing is happening in discussion boards and hopefully out in the wild. And then your simulation journals give you a chance to reflect on it and really integrate those skills, because that's kind of the whole point of this. If you can do these things in real life, it will make your life easier and better. So you have those tools at your disposal when you need them. And so the simulation journal is a chance for you to reflect on how that practicing is going. And the 35-word trait list. So that was taking a look at our self-concept in a somewhat objective way, and it feeds into all of the other things that we're talking about. So I hope you had a chance to do that and evaluate it, and then see, are you the person you want to be? And maybe you're closer to that than you at once thought. And finally, are we replacing buts with ands? So this is something that I've been working on for many years now, and I am not entirely good at it, consistent with it. And it has made a huge difference. So I hope you're working on it too. Okay, if you want to check in deeper, please feel free to reach out to me. I always want to hear from you. So let's start talking about empathy. And we'll start with the definition. And so this is the actual root words. Empathy means feeling with. That is the idea of connecting with another person and feeling what they're feeling from their perspective. Really, though, it's more about understanding in the deepest possible ways that we can understand one another. What it is not, however, is it is not sympathy. Yes, Hallmark, I'm here to tell you, you got it wrong. Sympathy actually means, sympathy actually means pity. And that's not what we mean, right? When we send one of those cards, we're not like, ha ha ha, your life is worse off than mine. We're like, dude, I'm really sorry that you're going through this. So the difference here is pretty significant. I want to be clear. There are times in our lives that we want pity. We want to feel pitied when we have a really bad cold and we need that special Kleenex. It's either got the Vicks Vapor Rub in it or it's got the lotion so our noses don't get all red. And we want you to feel sorry for us. When something is seriously wrong, when we're facing a serious, significant challenge, we don't want pity. We want empathy. We want understanding. Keep those differences in mind. It is also not agreement. And this is one where communication can get confusing because I can see things from your perspective. And that doesn't mean that I'll necessarily agree with the actions that you chose or the behaviors that you chose, even though I understand. So I want you to have understanding. Agreement, that's entirely up to you. So, why do we want to practice empathy? We want to practice empathy because there are people we love that we don't understand, that we may have even said to them, I don't know why you did that. I don't know what would lead you to think that. I can't understand how you could see this event and think that these were good options. And I want to help you be able to do that. I want to be able to help you with people that you want to build relationships with. So they might just be acquaintances now, but hopefully someday they'll be friends or people that you love. And one of the bridges to getting from acquaintances to friends is understanding and building those bonds. And then there are people you want to understand, and maybe they're not people you want to be in relationships with. Maybe you just want to understand why your boss is doing things the way that they're doing, or why someone that you are related to but don't like is doing the things that they're doing. So it helps you. I think oftentimes it helps you to be easier. It promotes sometimes tolerance if we can at least understand where they're coming from. And finally, the really tough one, the people you need to protect yourself against. So I worked as a counselor for behaviorally disturbed kids, which really just meant these were kids who'd often been horrifically abused. I need to understand their abusers. I needed to understand their abusers for a whole bunch of reasons. One is I needed to be able to protect my kids from potential abusers. I needed to know what was going on, what I could see, what I could spot, what I could understand. I needed to learn that, particularly with pedophiles, that behavior doesn't change over time, and that is something that I want to always be able to help protect my kids and my grandkids and your kids from. Understanding that most kids who are abused, particularly in that way, do not become abusers, but virtually all abusers were abused, which leads me to understand that I need to really be proactive in advocating for help. So kids who are abused should get psychological counseling, they should get support, they should get education to help keep them from becoming that small minority that does inflict that cycle of abuse. So empathy is going to make your life easier and better and richer, and it's also going to make you understand what motivates people that you really can't comprehend. So, what exactly are we talking about? We're talking about a concept or idea or thought or belief that is personal to you, not an abstract, I think we should get rid of the designated batter rule, or Ronaldo's the best soccer player ever, but something that is personal to you and the other person involved. We're also looking for something that's real, so not hypothetical. Why? Because I want to deal with your real thought processes, your real emotions, and your ability to guess what's really going on with the other person or people involved. It does not, however, need to be current. It can be something that happened 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. I don't care. You don't even have to still talk to that person. But I do want you to be able to go back to that time in your head and think about what they were thinking and what you were thinking. It does not need to be deep. You do not need to rip open your soul to me ever in this class. So the issue that I'm going to use as an example today is one that might resonate with many of you, and that's the issue of curfew. And so you can choose something like that or that exact issue if you want for your example this week. But I do want you to think about the multitude of other examples that are out there that you've experienced where you saw a situation differently than this person that you care about or that you're interacting with. It should be a conflict with actions or with values or with perception, because those are going to let us really explore what it feels like to feel with somebody who feels differently than we do. So how? Before we get into the steps, I want to talk about the underlying things that need to be there. And the first one is the necessary attitude. You have to be willing to explore those issues. You have to be in a place where you're able, capable of listening and thinking about someone else's perspective. You have to have the time. So if you talk to me right before I'm rushing to class, neither one of us are going to feel heard, and I'm not going to feel like I can really empathize because I'm going to be worried about, I don't want to be rude, and I have to cut them off so I can go to my scheduled class. So you have to have the time, as well as you have to want to take the time. You have to want to do this. You have to have the desire to empathize with the other person. So you have to be in the right headspace for that, and you have to genuinely really care about understanding. And finally, you have to be able to, at least in the short run, suspend your judgment. So if you go into this feeling like you're wrong, you're immoral, you're evil, it's going to be very hard for you to understand the other person. And so before I go on, I want to talk about a couple of sentences that are really useful to have in your vocabulary. Outside of the official method I'm going to be teaching you today, I want you to think about adding these sentences to your tool belt. So if you're attending a funeral, please do not say to somebody, I know exactly how you feel. And if you've been in that situation and somebody said that to you, I bet at least for a minute, you had a flash of anger. You can't possibly know how I feel. And even if it's somebody who's very close to you, even if it's somebody that's been in the same boat or is in the same boat, even if it's your sibling and it was a grandparent who died, you had a different relationship with them and you have different feelings. So please do not say, I know exactly how you feel. Instead, I'm going to give you a couple of options. There's the first one, which is, I can imagine how you feel, which means I'm taking the time and the effort to put myself in your place and think about what it might be like. And that can work for situations where you're close with the person and you really can imagine that. In a situation where you can't imagine, where it is perhaps unthinkable, you can say, I can't even imagine, or I can't even begin to imagine how you're feeling, what you're thinking. I will never forget when I was a brand new teacher, one of my students was sharing in class how she had suffered through the loss of multiple of her children. And had I at the time been crass enough to say, oh, yeah, I had a cat die and I know exactly what you mean because I really love my cats, would have been completely unacceptable. What I did say was, wow, I can't even begin to imagine how incredibly difficult that must have been and still be. You can let people feel heard. You can empathize with them without trying to take their emotions. So I hope you wrote those down. I hope you use them because they're much more connecting than the things that we typically have been taught to say. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of the pillow method. And I hope you pause this video right now and go grab your own pillow because your pillow is going to be super important for this. So it's not an official part of the pillow method, but before we get started talking about it, you want to be thinking about how you would explain the situation to me or to some other outsider. So I call that a situational overview, where you're just explaining what happened. So I think about a student who did this paper, and she was talking about, she did her paper and she was talking about how her roommate had borrowed her shoes and then consumed them and couldn't afford to replace them. I was very confused. So I want to say a couple of things before you do this activity. When I read the paper, I got lost a bunch of times and finally called the student into my office and I'm like, dude, you need to explain to me what this is about. And she confessed that she had actually written it about her roommate taking her bag of weed. So a couple of things. If you don't want to talk about it, don't. Totally okay. I would probably encourage you to not put anything in writing that involves illegal activity as a general rule, but choose something that you are willing to actually talk about. So once we've done the situation overview, so I can think as a parent, I'll take the parent side of the curfew debate, that I have a child at home, or I did at one time, had kids at home that were 16 and 17 and didn't want them out until 2 in the morning. So that would be the situation overview. And then we get into the first real step in the pillow method, and that is I'm right and you're wrong. And I want you to envision this on the top left corner of your pillow, either my blue pillow on the screen or the pillow that I hope you're grabbing right now. Punch a place in that pillow. This is where you're right and the other person is wrong. And this, of course, is our perspective, right? This is where we start. We start feeling self-righteous and indignant. And of course I'm right. Of course I want my kids in. I might even have said things like, there's a curfew. It's not legal for you to be out at 2 o'clock in the morning. I want you home. I can't sleep if you're not in the house. I'm right to want you in the house when I want to go to sleep. So I'm not having to worry about you. And you're wrong. And yes, I want you to use these exact phrases in your discussion. And you're wrong to think that nothing bad can happen at 2 a.m. I'm right. There are more drunk drivers on the road at 2, and it's more dangerous for you to be out on the road. And you're wrong to think that you can just get out of the way of any drunk driver. See how it goes? Okay, so that was the easy one. Now we're getting into the harder one. And that is, you're right and I'm wrong. So this is where you try and see it from the perspective of the other person. So from my kids' perspective, between school and work, and both of my kids worked, there wasn't a lot of time to have fun. And so hanging out with friends would happen after 10 p.m. And there were school activities that lasted till after 10 p.m. And so they were right that a big part of high school is developing friendships, and that mom was wrong to say that had to happen before a certain time limit was over. And they were right that they were responsible and had proven that responsibility. And mom was wrong because they were going to be independent out in the world very quickly. And without me to nag them about time, they needed to have learned how to exercise those rights and responsibilities. You might struggle a little bit with this one, but give it some time and try and really put yourself in the other person's shoes. This next one is a little bit tricky because I don't want you to go back and revisit the arguments you did before, but instead I want you to find ways that we're both right together, ways that we share in being right. So we're both right that we want the other person to be safe and happy. We're both right that we care about the other person getting good sleep, for instance. And then the flip side of that, ways that we share that we are both wrong. And so the wrong is we're both wrong to have lost our tempers over this. We're both wrong to have not sat down and discussed it and come up with a solution we could both live with. Might be an example of how we share in being wrong. Oh, clicked the wrong one. And I lost track of the pillow. I'm sorry about that. So if I'm right is on the top right and you're right is on the top left, and we're both right is on the bottom right, and we're both wrong is on the bottom left, the point of this is that they're all parts of the same pillow. And you can hold that pillow and it's all true at the same time. I'm right and I'm wrong. You're right and you're wrong. We share things where we're right together. We share things where we're wrong together. On top of all that, after you've looked at the it's all true, then you have to decide what matters most. Is it the issue or is it the relationship? A lot of theorists say that it's always the relationship that matters most. I would disagree. I think that there are definitely times that the issue matters more, and that you may in fact choose to end a relationship because you feel so strongly about a particular issue. And And I think that that's perfectly okay. I'm thinking back to a former student who had a landlord who thought it was okay to illegally come into their house unannounced at any time because they owned it. And I would say that what matters most is this issue. And so I'm going to find a new place to live with a new landlord because I don't want you coming to my house unannounced. So you do need to do some thought there. For many of you, it probably will be the relationship, and not always. And like I said, that's okay. So if you choose to do this as a paper, a couple of reminder about our paper guidelines. All of this is located in Canvas. You're doing 2 of the 4 paper options. So this is only the very first option. If you don't want to do it, don't. Wait for another one. I will tell you in advance, this is the easier option. And the big thing here is that I want you to focus your papers on showing that you can apply this skill to your life and analyzing what you've learned about your own life from this skill. So specifically for this paper, you're going to go through the steps that we just talked about. So you're going to write a paragraph for the situation overview, a paragraph for I'm right, you're wrong, a paragraph for you're right, I'm wrong, a paragraph for we're both right, a paragraph for we're both wrong, a paragraph for it's all true, a paragraph for what matters most, the issue or the relationship, and you're going to write a paragraph analyzing how this process worked for you and discussing the effectiveness of the Pillow Talk methodology or the pillow method. So if you're going to do the paper, like I said, this is the easier option. If you want to talk to me about it some more, feel free to do so. So that leads us to the next step. What are we going to do for the discussion board? And this is our weekly participation. So by Wednesday, I want you to use the pillow method. Take one of those low stress situations, and if you decide you want to make it into a paper, this will help you get started. Do all of those steps on the discussion board. And unlike other weeks, you're going to come back on Sunday for Sunday, and you're going to read a couple of them, but you're going to respond to only one of them this time, just one. And I don't want you to say, good job, I like the way you approached it. This time, I want you to help them brainstorm how the other person could be right. Brainstorm the other person's perspective, because that's what you're all going to need a little bit of help with. However, please listen to me now when I say this. Do not brainstorm the other person's perspective in real life. In real life, with people you know and care about, they will almost always, and maybe always, take that as you taking sides against them. So instead, it's really important that you listen to this part. Instead, don't do this in real life. Instead, listen. You can ask questions like, what do you think the other person was thinking? But do not try and guess what the other person was thinking. Please, I beg of you. Just for discussion board purposes. And then once you've had a chance to do the discussion board and you've got that chance to get some feedback from your classmates, hopefully, you can do your simulation journal. And just like we're doing it all of the other weeks, you're going to title the journal entry with the name, in this case empathy, and the date. You're going to reflect on was a technique effective, why or why not. You're going to include reminders for next time and whether or not this skill is integrated. Empathy is a really important skill to help you build relationships, and I think to help you build ease in your heart, especially during these times when people see things very differently than we do. So remember, I love you. I'm glad you're on this journey with me. I hope to see you again. Let's talk Turkey with Jayne Turk. Bye.